Next 2 weeks.
First of all, I just want to recognize the municipal politicians that are in the House. Now, I know that Mayor Holman is here. He can stand up. There he is. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to everyone for coming out tonight. As you know, Rideau Canal is very important, and that's why you're all here tonight. It really is an important cultural and historical legacy that Canada shares with the world, and we all have a role in ensuring that it is presented and preserved for future generations. So I appreciate your assistance in this very important matter. As you know, we're Brown, the Member of Parliament for Leeds and Grenville, and I'd like to briefly introduce the folks that are here with me tonight. Now, before I do that, I just want to let everyone know that we have a number of representatives from Parks Canada who are also with us this evening. We have Darlene Upton. Darlene, there you are. We have Jewel Cunningham and Annie Laurie. So they're here to see what comes out of tonight's meeting. So I'm going to introduce the folks that are up at the front with me here tonight. We have Mark Ackert, who many of you know operates Ontario Waterway Cruises, and you'll see his boat going through with the name on it, Court de Voyageur, and many of you know that. He was here with me, and he has been a great resource to me on things concerning the Rideau Canal over the last couple of years. Mark has a unique perspective on the canal. As you all know, he's a substantial user and someone who's been deeply immersed in technical operations for many, many years. He's been a strong advocate for both the Trent Severn and the Rideau Canals since his company began cruising the waterways back in the 1980s. These days, he's in Ottawa almost as much as members of Parliament, advocating on behalf of the Rideau Canal. Along with Mark, we also have Susan Fournier, who is from the Valley Heartland Community Futures Development Corporation. And Susan does a great job with the CFDC, and when we were looking for funding for a new process that we have undertaken on the Rideau, she cheerfully stepped up to the plate and involved other CFDCs such as the Thousand Islands and Grenville, along with many other organizations along the canal. And Susan is going to spend a few moments describing this process in a moment or two. So this is how the evening is going to unfold. As I stated, Susan is going to present an overview for the first 10 minutes or so, and then take a few questions. And I believe that Susan has another meeting to go to tonight, and we're just lucky that we've got her here for a few minutes, and she's been working very hard on all of our behalf. So after Susan is done, the floor will be open for some questions to her. And many of you are here tonight because you saw a release that was sent out by my office. And in that release, I explained that what we're looking for is written submissions that I can distribute to the people who need to see those, whether it be a minister or the folks who are working on this visitor experience opportunities concept. So there's a microphone that you can see right there. Please bring your written presentations to the microphone, and we can take a few minutes to explain those to us. And I or Mark may be able to take your questions at that point. I just first want to start off, as we all know, back in 2012, we met in this very room, and there was great concern about the Rideau at that time, about potential to have a shorter season, and as you know, that decision was reversed. Earlier this year, in January or so, there was a proposal to dramatically increase the fees. We were able to see that reversed, and at the same time we were able to see a 3-year fee increase to keep the fees actually at the same rate that they were in 2008. And we do know that there has been some changes to the hours. And one of the things that I've been asking for since last summer, and we all know that there has been some impacts because of those changes in hours, is that I'm trying to get a handle, and I know others are looking at this as well, trying to get a handle on exactly how the changes in hours have impacted use of the canal, and to see whether there's the potential to change and tweak some of those hours to make it so that people can better use the canal. So I'm also interested in that. But the main reason for us to be here tonight is to supplement and complement the visitor experience opportunities concept. So I'm going to call upon Susan to come up and talk about that, and we'll move on from there. So thank you, Susan, for being with us tonight, and look forward to hearing what you have to say and input on that. Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming this evening. I really appreciate the turnout. And all along the process, we have been very well supported by people who are willing to come out and talk about the future of the Rideau Canal. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a background about the visitor experience opportunities concepts. That's the name of the project that we are currently working on, that we started working on in the summertime. And it really, this history goes back, I'm just going to be brief on this, but it does go back over a year ago when the Rideau Roundtable continued to call a number of community meetings, and they were concerned about the future of the Rideau, and they envisioned having a summit about the future of the Rideau. And they looked for some support, and as they were moving their concept forward, more and more people, more stakeholders came forward and really wanted to see a very substantial project go forward to take a look at the future of the Rideau. And that project started to go a little bit further than maybe the Rideau Roundtable first envisioned, really began to look at not just canal operations, not just economic development, but really a full scope. And so an application did come forward to Community Futures, and it's both at my office, Valley Heartland, based out of Smith Falls, the Thousand Islands office based out of Brockville, Grenville, out of Prescott, and Frontenac Community Futures all provided support to this, along with Parks Canada, and then the Ministry of Tourism joined in as well. So really, funding-wise, has been an excellent partnership of federal and provincial support. And although maybe not some municipal dollars at this time, a lot of municipal support, hours and hours of work and time and effort, and just a wonderful concerted effort. When we went to look at how to sort of address the future, we looked at this VEOC, as those, everything has to make a word these days. That one is now a word that is going to be coined in the English dictionary. This didn't exist before. It's kind of like Nike. And we're all going to be talking about VEOCs. It's looking at visitors, experience, opportunities, concepts. It is not a strategic plan. It doesn't belong to any one organization. And I think personally that the strength of this process is going to be that as these plans are developed and as we've had our meetings, people could walk away and start to make changes that day if they wish to. So that's very liberating for businesses, for communities, for counties, and I think overall for the overall region. So what happens, and it's important to do so to get a feel for this, it really is taking a look at tourism development in a very different light. Simple, but a different light. It's based on two foundations. It's based on the foundation that we do not see tourists as tourists, but we see ourselves as hosts, and they are our guests. And everyone knows, if you're doing gardening on your front lawn, and somebody happens to drop in at lunchtime, and you haven't seen them for a long time, you're happy to see them, and you scramble to get some lunch. If you were waiting for visitors that you invited 6 months ago, and they're coming for a week, and you know they're coming, but you don't know exactly when that morning, and they roll in at noon, your reception for them is quite different. You were ready for them, you probably have their favorite food, and you're ready to be a host. You're looking forward to being a host. That's a very simple mindset difference. The second part of that, and I mean, a lot of us already do know that, a lot of us already do that, but there are some who don't. And so that's an important fundamental difference. The other fundamental difference in the way this approach is they start to take a look at not is your guest, is it that you're going to be hosting, not whether they are 62 or 16 or 26, but are they vegetarian? It's going to affect what you're going to buy for them and cook for them. Are they allergic to feathers? And you have feather pillows, maybe you'll change your pillow. Because now you're starting to understand that person. Of course, most of the time it's family and friends that really understand them. But when we're going to be a host in a region, and we're going to invite people to come as our guests, now we need to actually understand them as guests. This is a very fundamental shift in approaching tourism. And it is a fundamental shift in approaching how we develop what we're going to offer in tourism. I promise not to get into anything really too technical on how this works, but the Canadian Tourism Commission and the Ontario Ministry of Tourism in Ontario both have embraced this new concept. The Canadian Tourism Commission has developed a software program where you answer some questions about your habits when you travel. You just answer the questions on how to travel. At the end of that, it will come back and tell you what type of traveler you are. You might be an authentic experiencer. You might be a cultural explorer. You might be a buff, people who stare at the tourism staff because they actually know more than the tourism staff that they're going to visit. You might be, evidently I am, a rejuvenator. I didn't know that. When I read the description, I kind of doubted it, and then I read it further, and I thought, well, actually, yeah, that's exactly correct. So the important part of that is, as all of us, whether we are a community, whether we operate a tourism business, no matter what we have or where we are along this corridor, we start to think of those guests quite differently. And as we start to look at what do we have to offer, or what could we offer those who are already coming here, we understand their nature. We understand what to offer. It's not to ruin what we have today. And it's not to get it cross-commercialized. It's actually to enhance what we have, look at opportunities, and look at concepts. So to enact this, we held 6 two-day sessions where the people could not use their cell phones, they could not leave the room, they stayed right through from 8:15 in the morning till 5 o'clock at night. They were buddy-buddy for the whole time. At the end of the first day, they were given a challenge question, and then they came back the next morning with their homework done and went through the same process their second day. So it was a major undertaking of time and commitment by all those people who participated. And what will come out of that, for each of those 6 reaches or sections of the Rideau, there will be a report come for each reach and section. It will actually bring back and morph the ideas and the concepts and the thoughts and the strategies that were developed in each session. And then there will be an overarching VEOC report on what is possible for the entire region. And one of the things that was very empowering about this is when we held meetings close to Kingston and in Ottawa, both of those centers were very keen on doing more to engage and to send traffic to the inner parts of the Rideau, the inner reaches of the Rideau, and really see that as a benefit to them. And that's going to be wonderful for the overall canal and the overall region. And the other part that was very interesting with this too is it isn't limited to the canal. It's really the overall corridor and region. So it isn't like strictly a strict area. So it's very much looking at opportunities and concepts exactly as it says. In the end, the stakeholders that form the steering committee, Parks Canada, the 4 CFDCs, Ministry of Tourism, County of Lanark, United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, the Town of Smiths Falls, the Rideau Roundtable, the Rideau Heritage Tourism Association, all have a vested interest, as do many other user groups and community groups, to work together, and you're starting to see that emerge. So what comes next? Those reports will come out towards the end of January. Certainly in February, we will have ability for the entire public to see them. And from those reports, we'll start to see some opportunities. Some of those opportunities are already being realized. There are a number of tourism businesses that are already working on things that they will be changing. There are already some organizations looking at some things that they're going to launch and they are going to be changing. I know even at our own CFDC, there's a pilot project that we were looking at, and we are now tweaking that, and we will be ready to launch that next year as well in the tourism market. So I think that the entire process has been one to really engage people in very forward thinking. It isn't about rehashing problems, it's looking about what could be and what sort of opportunities we have to seize, and then making sure that we're able to seize those. At the same time with those meetings, it was a huge amount of time that was requested of people to give up 2 full days, and not everybody could. Even people who were super keen, it's just those 2 days, it's a very large commitment of time. So we developed an online survey. We have provided that in numerous press releases to all the chambers of commerce, to all of the communities, through the radio it's been advertised. That started a month, well, almost a month ago, November the 16th. It will be online until December the 16th. We already have almost 100 responses, and people have been putting in amazing suggestions. They are taking the time, taking consideration, and really putting in some incredible feedback. It is interesting that through the VEOC process and the 6 community meetings, I was at all of them. I was actually the court reporter. At all of them, there was 2 people who sat at a computer and took copious notes, every single thing that was said. I did that for 3 days. Each time it was 18 pages, single spaced. I gave the consultant lots to read. But at those sessions, we had about 60% of responses started to be along a similar flavor, slightly different nuances. And we're finding through the reports that are coming back with our online surveys, it's very similar. There are a lot of recurring themes that are coming out. So I think that as we start to amass all that, it's a huge pile of information. And as we start to analyze that, I think we're going to have some wonderful opportunities as we move forward into the new year. And I have to say that kudos to Parks Canada, because they made sure that their staff were out at every single one of the meetings. Sometimes there were multiple staff, and it was a huge commitment on time and effort on their part. And there were times when they took a few angry remarks. They always were wonderful to deal with, always positive, always looking forward, and really wanting to find solutions into the future. So I think that really bodes well for our region. From a funding standpoint, our project officially wraps up towards the end of January into February, and then we will be looking for a public launch of the reports, and then we aren't going away. We're in your neighborhood, we're not far away, and we look forward to the next steps as all sorts of projects emerge out of this initiative.
I guess my question is somewhat similar. What have you done in the process? I see there's now the online survey, which I'm becoming aware of for the first time. So, you know, it hasn't been that well publicized. We're a voter. We've had a voting pass for 25 years. Parks Canada has our email address, and yet notification. We just got a thing to ask us to take out our lock pass for next year again, but there was no mention of the survey in that notification. And so I guess I'd like to know what the process is doing. I realize that you've had our political representatives, you've had business, etc., but what are you doing to reach those of us that have supported this canal for 25 years?
Well, the process that we currently have right now is very much looking at a tourism focus. That's what that particular process is. And that's why we did do the online surveys, and that's why Gord is doing this as well. But I think it's important for people to realize, too, this isn't the one and only time, nor is this period of time the one and only time to be able to get input into this entire process and the needs in the future and ideas and concepts that people may have. It isn't meant to be that at all. And I think over the coming 2 to 3 years, we will be seeing more and more public engagement and more outreach activities for public engagement. From a community futures perspective, it is on the development of the region as a tourism product. Other issues would be specifically to other entities.
But many of us for 2 years, 3 years have been inputting. I mean, you asked for letters, I've written letters. You've asked us to come to meetings, I've come to meetings. And I'm sure that many of the rest of the people in this room and many other, and you know, from a tourism perspective, yes, I live on the canal, but if we look at the voters going through, they're coming from Montreal, they're coming from New York, they're coming from wherever. Those voters, okay, should be a part. They are tourists. They're tourists on the water.
Rideau as a foundation to partnerships, development of new opportunities, and in doing so, how can the discussion not embrace things like a change of the regulatory burden, the resource burden, the seasons of operation, that would be driven by the partners, the communities, potential business interests, so Parks Canada can provide a more effective contribution to the regional economy?
And I think what you saw people willing to do and having an interest in doing is looking at what the opportunities are, looking at the position the Rideau could have, that it should have. There was a lot of feeling by people that it should be seen as an iconic Canadian experience to understand the nation, the building of our nation, from the first capital to our current capital, why it was built, etc. And even going beyond just that one theme, but there were themes and themes over and over again that linked the entire corridor. Many times there was topics about governance, logistics, and people are realizing that that can't be remedied instantaneously. It was not hidden, or it wasn't dispersed, it wasn't dismissed in any way, but it wasn't also the overarching continual focus either. So it was an underpinning, it was never dismissed, but it was, as much as anything else, if nothing changed tomorrow, there's a lot more that we could do to seize this as a tremendous asset. Then work slowly over time to see some changes come about. I think we had a lot of people who came in who were not patient when they came in, and I think over the course of 2 days, we're willing to work and work hard to see some changes and patient.
Well, I was invited that I'd be pleased to send something off to Gordon Mark here. But I do have another related, very brief inquiry. Is the results of this process is a document. Will the document enter into a forum where there might be policy discussions, reorientation of investment priorities, both the federal government as well as municipalities and the province? Or is this, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, because this kind of a discussion can often be a way of placation
No.
and allowing an issue to fade off into
No.
the sunset.
Definitely not that. Those who are here today to seize the maximum benefit they can for their futures. Those other policy issues and logistical issues, I don't think are going to be a thrust of the report at this time, but I think that if you start to seize your future, you will start to see improvements come by their nature. In very much the same way as if we have a major industry come in and they happen to locate down a gravel road and they start to employ 200 people, you will quickly see the gravel road get paved. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but the reality is, if you see development and you see success and you see opportunities being seized, then often logistical and other things start to change as well.
I thank you very much for that. I'd like
I
to
just wanted to echo what the previous speaker said about, I also live on the system. I'm on Clear Lake, the other side of our property is on Millboro Lake. And what Parks Canada did last year was probably the beginning of putting us into a coffin. You're killing it. So while you're doing the visioning, and as a retired teacher, I know all about visioning. If you don't bring the hours back, if you don't bring the locks back and the interpretive guides, for example, at Jones Falls, forget it. Nothing else is going to work. You're killing us at the roots, those of us who live here. Thank you.
Sorry, Gordon, Susan, I can't keep quiet. I really support the visioning concept, having had the presentation on it last week. But while I was sitting there and listening to it, and I fully support that as a long-term process, where I was running into an issue is that we were sitting in the basement of the Parks Canada building in Smiths Falls, and what was missing from the concept is the foundation. And I looked around and I noticed all the pillars were concrete. Well, if we look at the Rideau area, 15 kilometers either side of the river and the canal, that foundation is like wood being attacked by termites. And that needs a short-term solution. And we need that short-term solution right now from its biggest investor, its biggest stakeholder, which is the government, to provide the opportunity to do the economic development that the visioning will do. And, you know, I applaud every exercise that is going to bring economic development to the area. The boaters, to me, yes, are very important. They're not the biggest. It's going to be the entire tourism industry that generates business for the businesses, the businesses will grow, create jobs, hopefully bring people back or keep people here. Cannot do that right now while the termites are undermining the foundation. And I'm afraid to say, it's going to have to be a political solution, Gord.
I'll let Gordon. I would certainly say from a community economic development position, I would completely disagree with you. I think that the foundation is here. I think that the businesses are here. I work every day with hundreds of businesses, and most of them are growing. Most of them are expanding and hiring. We are looking at record numbers of new inquiries coming to this area. I don't think it's as dire as you believe, and I really have always believed in not relying on government, even though I work for a government-funded agency, because we can empower ourselves to change our product today, seize new opportunities in marketing, and actually seize new revenues. So I think that we have the asset. I don't think it is being attacked by termites. I think it's had a heck of a shake, and I think it's got a lot of attention. And I think there'll be some good things that come out of that attention, but I would really disagree. And on behalf of all of the businesses in your communities, on their behalf, I would definitely say that that's not true, that they have been faced with some new challenges. We have a very resilient business community. They have come through ice storms, SARS. This is just one of the things that have come their way. And, you know, there are some older ones who are now exiting and maybe somewhat bitter as they exit, but we have a lot of new businesses coming through the ranks, all different ages and stages, and we have amazing resources that are in our region. So I would say that no, we do need to look at this, we need to see what the opportunities are, but I don't think that we are being attacked by termites.
Could we maybe have a...
First of all, I'd like to thank Gord Brown and Parks Canada for doing this. I think it's going to be very productive. I'm from Sealy's Bay, and I'm a paddler. And what I've found in the last 4 years that I've lived here is the fastest growing sport, first of all, is stand-up paddleboard. Another fast growing sport is kayak fishing. And I could go on and on. I think the route we got to go and start thinking of is put more docks in for the paddlers. I paddled the Rideau Canal, I paddled Trent Severn. Rideau Canal is 3 times paddler friendly than the Trent Severn, and we made strides in putting docks in for the paddlers. So be it, there are a few that the seniors have a hard time getting to. For one, Jones's Falls, you have to park your car, and if you're older, you've got to drag your kayak for half a mile. There's another one at the Morton Dam, where you paddle in and then you got to go up a steep hill. I do think that the way to go is paddle sport, paddling. Let's get this place known for the best paddling place in the world. And I think we can. We have the facilities, we have the lake, we have the canal, and I think the way to go is paddle sports and many other paddling activities. Thank you.
Any more questions specific to the VEOC process? National historic sites and other Parks Canada assets and national parks. So I was so excited about what I saw. I said, this is something that we really should have a look at for the Rideau. And one of the comments that I heard was about the fact that people come to visit the Rideau that are not necessarily going on boats. And the statistics that we have is that 7 out of 10 people who actually come to the Rideau are not actually on the canal. So they're coming to see the boats going through the canal, or they're coming to visit some of our small towns and villages that are an important part of the Rideau community. So this whole process is going to help complement that. I appreciate that there are specific questions about the operation of the canal, and there has been investments in the capital of the canal. We saw the rebuild of one of the locks at Jones Falls just last year. We all know, and I am heavily involved in the Fort Henry process back 10 years ago when that National Historic Site, which is in fact part of UNESCO World Heritage Site, that is the Rideau Canal and the Kingston Fortifications. And that asset, Fort Henry, was falling apart with significant investment. It was a lot of money. There's been most of $40 million spent there. And now Fort Henry should be around for the long run. we have so many locks that will need work. Governments are just gonna be a waste of money and paying consultants. I can tell you, I would never have bought into this process if that was gonna be the case. We hope to have a report by the end of January, not that long from now. We hope to have more public input at that time, and there is a real attempt to have real results from this process as early as spring of next year, 2014, making a difference, hopefully generating more revenue. And then there's the longer term process, which you all can participate and contribute to. So I'm going to sit down, because I know that many of you want to talk about some of the things. And Mark is here to help. He knows the canal as well as anyone and can speak to it. So if anybody wants to get up to the mic, and I have asked for written submissions on specific ideas to contribute to the VEOC process. So the floor is open.
Hi, well, I didn't think I'd be first, and I'm not very good at this, but here I go. Kayaking is what I do, and I was delighted to hear the gentleman from Silly's Bay pump it up. So my report, which I'll hand in, is the kayaker's perspective on the Rideau Canal. I really want to make two main points, and one of them, and this is going to start sounding like a broken record, is operating hours. Parks Canada really needs to extend the operating hours. She wanted that input. Well, there it is. And the current hours are really limiting, not just for paddlers, but for all boaters. And I honestly think that without increased hours, there's absolutely no point developing more attractions to get more visitors. Because if boaters can't get there and they can't get home in a reasonable time, they're not going to come. And I just want to say, and this is not in my notes at all, that I think that we should really be focusing on the canal, not on land-based travelers. Even if 70% of them are land-based, there's so much competition. You don't have to drive to the canal. You can drive to beautiful communities all over Ontario. So the focus really should be on the Rideau Canal and on boating. And I think that Parks Canada should extend the hours, and they should consult with boaters about how best to do that. Now, as a boater, for example, my advice would be the locks don't all have to be open at the same time. I mean, if you extend the hours at a bottleneck like Jones Falls, for example, you'd have an enormous effect on how much people can travel. Merrickville and, the run up through Smiths Falls here, the same thing applies. Like, have them open longer and maybe keep other locks a little bit more restricted. But that would really work for boaters. So, and I also want to say that if the hours are extended, Parks Canada really needs to communicate that efficiently and immediately to get increased voting for 2014. And my second topic actually concerns drawing more paddlers to the canal. I think kayaking is a really fast-growing sport. Everybody knows that. And the Rideau Canal is a magnificent place to travel. There's no better place for kayaks and canoes, and yet you hardly ever see any kayakers traveling on the canal. You might see day trippers out from their cottages, but traveling through, no. So as a kayaker who travels regularly and extensively on the canal, and I'll say I did 950 miles under the canal this summer alone, to Kingston, Ottawa, and many, many times, and it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I have some advice, and the first thing is publicize. Let kayakers know and canoeists know just how wonderful this 120 miles of gorgeous country is. They don't know that, they haven't got a clue. And the other thing they don't know, and this was my experience when I first started, just 2 years ago when I retired, it's a little bit intimidating. It's intimidating for anyone the first time, but you're in a little kayak and you look up at the 45 cruiser. I mean, kayakers just don't realize that they can walk through and that they're really welcome. Parks Canada indeed should improve the facilities, as this gentleman said. More rafts, maybe some rest stops along the way, easy and inexpensive things to do, really, really small. And that would encourage paddlers to come.
Thank you very much. I just want to say, I know a gentleman from Sealy's Bay was here. There was a new kayak dock at Sealy's Bay, and they've been having some events. In fact, last summer I participated in a kayak poker run.
I think I saw them.
But I also want to recognize my former kayak partner, Peter Patassi, who's here, and he's a former Olympian and participated in the Olympics in Montreal in 1976, and he's always out in his kayak along the Rideau, just down the road here. So thank you for your input about canoe and kayak, because I know that that was an important part of what we've been hearing through this process, so thank you for your contribution.
Kenny, I represent the workers along the Rideau Canal under Union of Transportation Employees. First thing I'd like to mention is Kim Wetlock, the consultation company that we're using for this exercise. Just to let the crowd know, prior to being a private consultation company, he was an employee for Parks Canada for 18 years. So if there is any bias in the consultation, maybe it would play back onto his 18 years being an employee under Parks Canada and the Carol Sheedy. So just to let the crowd know that the consultant company is, that's where the background and roots are from for that company. You had mentioned that $40 million had gone into Fort Henry. We're seeing more and more money from the Rideau in the past year going to Fort Henry. 10 million of those dollars that were scheduled for Jones's Falls for a total rebuild was, the canal was not ready to do the contract, and that money was deferred to Fort Henry. So we're seeing that. We're also seeing, you know, the employees are getting very upset. They've been cut to the bone. You know, UCTE, the Union Transportation Employees, has put a position paper forward to you and the other MPs along the canal, which would be operated as a special operating agency. It would be governed under whoever the PMO would push the governance to, whether it be Parks Canada or Transport Canada. That would be up to the PMO's office. But with the separate operating agency, it would be the canal operations would be accountable to a standalone business plan, which would not involve the accountability to the larger Parks Canada function. And this would, you know, also eliminate the silo management, and infrastructure of operation expenditures would merge and synergize. So, you know, we put this position paper forward to your office, and we'd like to present this as well to the consultants to review. And like I said before, we've also sent in some submissions earlier that we had sent to Mr. Kent for possible money revenue generations, and so we'd like to put this paper forward to you, and if you could present it to the consultant company, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a lifelong resident of Rideau. Worked on it for 40 years, summer and full time. And I was a participant in the VEOC. And the VEOC is a good tool, and it's needed, but it's not going to help the Rideau immediately. And the biggest thing that can help the Rideau right now is hours of operation, because first of all, you need to be able to attract good quality employees. And good quality employees want to work. They don't want to have to work a second job and things. And by making all the jobs seasonal, from a full person year, you're going to lose staff. People are going to come for a little bit, but then they're going to go off to other places and things. So in order to hire a good quality operating staff, you need the hours so those people have a real job. Secondly, when I see the paddlers and stuff, and being a lifelong third generation cottager on the Pinnacon Lake, your short hours has done nothing but put the hammer down. I've got an 82-year-old neighbor that goes in his runabout to Westport now, wide open all the way, because in order to get to Westport and back, that's what he has to do. I have a pontoon boat and a handicapped daughter that we use to go to Westport. I have to get to Chaffee, so I have to put it on plane to get to Westport, to be able to have lunch, to turn around, and come back on plane, because I gotta be back to Chaffee by 4:30. And no time to visit with friends or spend other money at the restaurant where we go takes money. So, first of all, you need to increase the hours of operation. And I truly believe that they should open the 1st of May. Staff are on site, they're doing things. The first weekend of May, pike season opens is a big deal, sport fishing is a big thing. And to me, that's the time to open, rather than wait till the May long weekend. Boaters are like golfers, they want to get out and use their boat and stuff. You know, and also with competitors like the river, it's hard to compete. You know, when you're stuck at your marina, and even in the summer now, like, you know, all the marinas on the Rideau used to have waiting lists. Now they have vacant slips. Second part of the formula, I think, is you have to reduce prices. Parks Canada has never, their national office, never known how really to deal with the canal. We've always been treated like a historic site, a national park, and user fees. Well, I got on their website, I want to be treated like a national park. Now, I used to always fight that. But I can buy a single site pass if I'm a kayaker, like, you know, I can buy, or if I'm a hiker, I can go to a park as a single person and buy a season's pass to use that park as much as I want for $90. I can buy a discovery pass and use all the parks I want if I live in the western block for $138. If I have a 20-foot kayak, it's $176. Why the difference? Same thing with my pontoon boat. You know, RV spots in there at $45 a night, which seems to be the going rate, and keep it full. Black Rapids, Long Island, and Hartwell, we own extensive lands. I mean, some people may not like it, they may not get used to it, but if I can drive my RV into Banff National Park, why can't I drive my RV into Hartwell's Lock Station in the back by the experimental farm and be in downtown Ottawa? It's a RV is a growth market, and there's more and more being sold. And Parks Canada, from the canal's point of view, is ignoring that entire land-based market and the facilities for them. If you're going to tie up a 40-foot sea ray, why not tie up a 40-foot trailer? Sort of same type of thing, but they have to be, you know. I do think there's room for advertising in Parks Canada's brochures. I sold advertising for 15 years on the canal. The statement I got right from Alan. I talked to Alan, the CEO, about it, because I was on Parks Canada's National Health and Safety for 15 years. Alan's there, he said, policy won't let us do it. We'll change the policy then. Step out of the box. And I said, why don't you take a pilot site, try and sell some ads and see what it is. We have people in our communication department, we have people in the thing. And I said, if it shows that it's working really well, and you think somebody's not gonna change the policy, but people have to, everybody's worried about their job, and I can see that. You know, you have to be innovative and do, step out of the box. Anyways, Eleanor was kind enough to type my thoughts up from a place, so I'll give you one of these. Anyway, thank you.
Good. I'm the president of the Big Reed Lake Association. I have sent you an electronic copy of this version a little earlier. We've identified four key points. One is one that everybody else is talking about, hours of operation. One of the reasons we did that is we had examples.
Just don't hold it. You're a negative onto the mic there. That's it.
He likes to wander.
If I'm short. Anyway, one was the hours of operation. And our example is people were trying to go from the Rideau Lake up to Westport have some lunch. They just didn't do it because they couldn't get back to the lake. I talked to somebody else yesterday. They used to love to go down to Jones's Falls. They can't make the system. People just aren't traveling because they are afraid to get there and not be able to get back. They want that comfort, time, and being able to get back to their location. So the recommendation we'd like to say is go back to at least the 2012 hours, particularly in July and August, so that at least we can get back and people are using it, have some time. Second one is the fees for use. One of the voters from the lake highlighted to us that to go from Portland up to Westport again and come back, you get a 28-foot boat would be about $34. Question is, do I spend $34 for 2 trips through a lock that's going to take maybe 5 minutes? Of the old days anyway, about 5 or 6 minutes to get through. The answer is no, because it's disposable income. It's times are tight in economics. It's nice to hear about the VEOC, but basic problem is right across the system. People are watching how they spend that disposable income. So, we have a recommendation there. That recommendation is stop looking at cost-based fees. Look at what you're charging on other canals, other systems. One person said to me today, look at the Erie Canal. What do they charge in the Erie Canal? And the other part of it is, go from cost to market, do surveys of what people feel they can afford to pay for the canal right now. Do surveys, you're doing surveys, you're doing studies. What do people feel is a reasonable price to use the canal? They'll tell you. They know it's not, can't be done for free, so they'll probably give you an honest answer. So that's the method we'd like you to take a look at. The third point we looked at was costing.
Can I just ask, get my mic working here again? The fees that are there right now, which were frozen at 2008 levels, what's the thought on those level of actual blockage fees?
My reading is, given the current economy, that they're too high. But that has to be confirmed. I'm just talking, I've listened to members, what they've said to me about the system, the $34 for that short trip of the day back, especially when you throw in the shorter hours, it probably really takes away, the two are combined, that everybody's trying to highlight tonight.
So let me just ask. So current fees could be discouraging use, and if they were different, they would actually, in your view, they could generate more use. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. The hours are fixed. I believe that the reports that were in the review mirror earlier indicate that you were down 25% to 30% on blockages at the Narrows and Newborough, which are two of the busiest lock systems on the canal. So the two items combined just take away from people saying, I'll enjoy the experience of the canal. The next part, we were talking about costing, and I would say to you, one of the things that's occurred is that we are seeing a lot more larger boats being trailered into the village of Portland and put into the lake for the weekend. They're not using the system at all. They're just bringing them to the lake and putting them on the lake. So that's taken away from your usage. It has a detriment to the canal and what you're generating revenue-wise. It also has a little bit of a detriment to the lake, in that now you have a higher concentration of boats in one area. Costing, we're not going to go into quite a bit on that one. Some of it is about your contracting, some about showing what is in your costs. We had a number of recommendations in that area. Maybe if I put these things on so I can see them. Number one, get an outside body to do a thorough costing of the Rideau Canal system, so we know what apples and apples we're talking. Item two, identify those areas of work where contracting out may have substantial cost savings to the system. And I use substantial cost savings because if you can do it yourself, do it. If there's substantial cost savings, do that. Third, identify the essential capital projects required for the Rideau Canal system and cost them out. I've heard lots about SOAs here tonight. My personal opinion is don't do it until the canal is up to an acceptable standard. We've watched the docks be transferred and the docks and harbors be transferred by Transport Canada. We know municipalities are having difficulty finding funds to maintain those docks now that they've inherited, and I'd hate to see it happen to somebody with the Rideau Canal. And another one was tighten up Parks Canada's contracts to ensure dollar value is received for Canada and the work is completed in a timely manner. One of the reasons we said that is we watched the two contracts for bridges, one in Perth, one in Smith Falls, where with the simple clause in the contract, there could have been a penalty to get the contractor to have the work done on time. There was no simple clause in the contract. They delayed 6 weeks from the start because it saved them money on the heat. So that's not a good example. For management, and it has been raised with us a number of times this year that the water level in the system was higher than normal. Didn't seem to be controlled to the same extent it should have been, which caused a fair amount of concern along the shoreline from erosion of the shores, different locations. So we understand that the system is now controlled by a computer program out of Peterborough, but even the opening of the canal was delayed by a couple of weeks in certain spots because the water flow was too high and it was dangerous to the traffic. So we thought maybe it was because of cost savings, but no, it was just that the computer system doesn't work. So maybe the manpower is better.
Was there a water level issue on Big Rideau?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Through my experience, I worked with a lot of excellent people there. If it hadn't been for John Bonser and several of those people pushing for the heritage site, it wouldn't have happened. And that was Parks Canada back then. I read this piece tonight about the workers talking about, well, maybe it should shift to Transport Canada. I remember Transport Canada. No, that's not the right way to go, but the concept of this operating agency might not be a bad worth looking at. But I'm not here by any means, and I know some people want to vilify Parks Canada. Parks Canada is not the villain in this, not by a long shot. The villain is the minister and the government of the day, and that's where it lies. You agree that I'll make a little bit of a political speech, sir. And by the way, thank you for calling these meetings, because you mentioned Mr. Reed, but I'm sorry I haven't even heard from him. I've seen nothing from anybody else on the canal except you. There's a little pit bull from the party there up in the Beanway who makes, anyway. Sorry, but politicians are the only ones who can take our money, spend it, and come back when they overspend it and say, give us more, and make it legal. Otherwise, it'd be called something else, sir. Anyway, I have a concern. When we had the first meeting here, I listened very carefully to your words. I think somebody really briefed you quite well. Stay away from culture, stay away from history. For God's sake, don't get into anything that's the human, economic, and cultural story of this canal. Because it came out from before, this is the flesh and blood of what this community is. But you very carefully took the party line, and I'm not knocking that, but you very carefully took the party line of saying it was a different plane. We were looking at other factors, kind of business factors, and that is just purely business. It's not business. It isn't. This is the lifeblood. This canal and the areas beside it, people pour into it to be able not. I don't like this tourism thing. Like, it's kind of an obfuscation because we're still not talking about the flesh and blood of what makes this place so great. It's different from the Trent, as I think Mark might know. It's a different rationale for even being. And I'm hearing this, oh, we're gonna have all these tourism things, and but we've done this before. Nobody's got any money anymore. We're in a downturn. People just don't have the money to spend. But to make this thing work, it's gonna be the life and blood of this place. You said VEOC and all these other things. This has always been a welcoming community. We've always done what we can. And there haven't been too many people walking around here with their hands up saying, give me more. It's not the culture of this place. You knuckle down and you do it. all these other processes, I hate that word, but all these other processes are just getting away from the fact of, come on, we're human beings here, let's make this thing work for what it really is. It's the life and blood that flows through us. It doesn't matter whether you're a cottager, a paddler, whether you're a marina operator, whether you're just somebody who's working, that's incorrect. Whether you're somebody working on the canal, it doesn't matter, we're all in it together, it's a community thing. And I'm not hearing an expression that says we're a community. And you're the leader. Well, yeah, well, you're the political leader. And for a large part of the canal. So I respect what it is that you're doing. I'm sorry that you have to be a member of the government today, because the other side of it is, you're the one who has to walk in and take all our money again. Sorry. But Parks Canada is not the film.
Site that we have here. Some of you may know I'm now the chair of the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage, but I have spent most of my adult life advocating for our national historical sites in Eastern Ontario. I didn't mention Fort Henry, but and Upper Canada Village. I was part of that with the St. Louis Parks Commission, but I have a full appreciation for what you're saying about this wonderful asset that we really have here. That's why I'm so passionate about making sure that your voice is taken to Ottawa. And I know that sometimes it seems that nobody's listening, but I can assure you that there was people listening. And there's more to do, absolutely. But thank you for your contribution.
Westport, and I have a small West Coast trawler, 23-foot boat, the Badger, and it's got a 50 horsepower Volkswagen diesel in it. As a result, I'm 6-7 knots, and this season it limited my range, and I didn't buy a season pass since the first time in years. That being said, and we're not all, like, well, we don't own, a lot of us don't own 40-foot Sunrays and whatever, and multi-million-dollar boats and whatever. First thing I'd like to ask is the canal or the Rideau system going to lose out on money for the Canada 150th anniversary? We didn't seem to do too well with the 1812 one, even though the canal was part of the 1812 spending spree and whatever on that. So I just wondered whether the government was looking at doing anything or including it in the Canada 150 celebration in 2 years. The competition, I mentioned earlier the Erie Canal and costs and whatever. Now I know that the Erie Canal was brought back from its death bed there because they transferred money from the New York State Thruway, which helped rebuild the canal system and subsidizes it. But my boat at 23 feet, it cost me close to $190 for a season pass on the Rideau system, and it would be $75 on the Erie system for the same annual pass. The other thing, if you go to their website, last year, at the beginning of the season, the Erie Canal, New York State Erie Canal system, put the Rideau system's costs for a pass and whatever in a column compared to theirs to show the difference. They also showed the difference between the hours that were being done on ours, on the Rideau system and the Trent, and what theirs were. Now, I mean, come on, if you had a choice, and I know, because I know a lot of boaters that come through New York, because I spend a lot of time in the Westport Harbor, and a lot of them come this way. They weren't prepared to spend the extra days stuck in Ottawa because they couldn't get up the system. They figured that it cost anywhere from 2 to 3 extra days to traverse the system because of the hours. And that's lost time to them, because it means that they have to travel faster. They don't get to stop and shop and visit the communities and whatever. And a lot of boats bypass Westport. They went from New Borough to the Narrows because they had to get to Portland. They had to get into the big Rideau so they could get further down to Merrickville. So there was a drop in boats at Westport. It's the first year that we weren't completely booked in our harbor for July and August. It's, you know, so, and the other thing too is that down there, the municipalities, and a lot of them give free tie-ups, there's free tie-ups overnight at the locks on the Erie system, and so there's a lot of incentives that they're putting forward. They have cycle trails, they got into the RV market and trailer sites along their systems. It becomes a destination. If they're talking tourism, yeah, it's all right to put in businesses and things like this, but tourists come for the 2 months, they've got holidays, they've got 3 weeks on their vacation, and they're gonna come, and you've gotta make it a destination, and our place is the Rideau system is the destination. Westport is a destination for shopping. We charge the boaters $1.25, I think it is, a foot to stay at the lock, or at our marina, but yet the cars that come get free parking in the village. There was even talk one year of taking the money that the marina raises and use it to fix the sidewalks. Like, I mean, so the boaters, and the other thing too is the boaters are the reason. I mean, if you've ever tried to take your boat through the Narrows Lock on a windy day, and there's 75 or 80 Japanese tourists standing there taking pictures of you, trying to get the boat in. They're there because I'm trying to get the boat in. If I wasn't there, their bus would have bypassed the place. And I'm glad to provide some entertainment to the tourists. My last point, well, the other thing too is that we can thank Colonel Bye for building the canal system the way he did, because I mean, we owe a lot to him, and it's up to us to maintain it. Like, if he hadn't built it the way, this thing would have fallen apart long ago. But, you know, 150 years and it's still the only basically intact operating canal of that age, and I believe the world, that's still using the same equipment and everything else. And I mean, that's something that shouldn't be lost on this. And not only that, Canadian government didn't even build the thing. I mean, it was the British government that put in the capital works and spent, and under Nelson, I mean, he was the one that said, okay, or Nelson was, Wellington was the one that approved the millions of dollars that built this thing. My last point, and that is that the heritage and the living displays along the canal, like the shutting down of the blacksmith shop in Drummonds Falls. So why doesn't Parks Canada? I know Parks Canada is struggling for a lot of this stuff. I mean, the money and all that kind of stuff. I was a civil servant, I understand it. But what they should do is perhaps, like, they're good at managing parks. You know, excellent at that. Now, you didn't see them join management of Jasper and Banff Park together under one management system like they did the Trent and the now. But, you know, that's another thing that comes up. But anyway, my point is that perhaps they should look at jointly operating or sharing some of the operations of the canal with other departments. And my suggestion is that they approach the Museum of Canadian History, the new one, and have them provide all of the interpretation, the heritage stuff, the blacksmith stuff, and whatever. Or the other thing too, which I think would be an ideal thing, and I suggested it to Museum Canada, and that is just take over the canal as part of the museum. It's an operating, living museum display. You know, I mean, they can see the 8 blocks from Alan's, the guy that's the CEO there, from his office. And it runs right through the National Capitol, and that can be run as a museum and protected and whatever. They seem to be better at protecting things than parks. Like, parks is a business for national parks. And I think they got the raw end of the deal with running canals and things. But maybe the museum is better. I know Transport Canada is another one. But you've also got to remember when I worked out west that the last piece of undisturbed prairie was part of the military's Suffolk range in Alberta there, which they used it as artillery part, but they kept a huge chunk of their military bases as prime, untouched prairie. So they can protect things too. Maybe the military can take it over and run it. You know, they seem to have the money.
His original purpose was
And that's the
military.
original purpose. But no, I seriously think that some thought should be given to the Museum of Canadian History, or Science and Tech can be brought into for some of the stuff for, you know, for displays and things and whatever. It's got to be, you've got to start thinking outside the box. It's not a national park.
Can't describe my viewpoint as adequately as the last gentleman did in terms of importance of the canal. My contention is that the canal is a canal because of the motive. Without motives, it's a historic site. But whether people come for recreation, whether they come as cultural tourists, whether they come to boat the canal, those activities can only take place when the canal is open to visitors. When they're over, we can at least rely on this as a base for new business to come in, and that as new businesses proliferate, we can then consider increasing hours again and increasing service to the public again to the levels it previously enjoyed. It just seems right now, and I don't know if other people feel that way, but there seems a disconnect in direction. So in one direction we are engaging the public to provide further opportunity, and at the same time, nobody knows for sure whether we're going to be cutting some money. Thank you very much.
I would say yes, and it's a much more difficult in our world to come up with ways to not make it happen. Sometimes the easy way is actually saying yes to someone's request, as coming to you, or someone's request for enabling legislation to untie the hands to allow the entity to move forward. So we're very enlightened to hear that there's potentially some of that taking place. This water, high water this year, and just to clarify a little bit, it's going from one end to the other. It was a pretty common problem this year, compounded by the hours, because what you had was boats going faster to get, as was previously discussed. Well, when the high water, then you have more shore erosion, and you're into an erosion area that is doing damage. So I know that that was brought forward to Parks Canada. I know that they had discussions on that. So that speed and water level and erosion, that's all something that's kind of grouped together. So hopefully, is the other thing about Parks Canada that is true. Needing more money, sure, but they also need some legislation that would be giving them some more opportunities. They're very limited on what they can do, having gone through the process in the last year. What we've been up to, a lot of it stems from 1972, the cabinet conclusions of the day that transferred from transport, and I'm glad a lot of you still sort of remember that time. But when it came from transport, there was only a couple of paragraphs at the time that sort of enabled this place to be structured. And in those two paragraphs, one of the guiding lines was historical preservation. So when we want to talk about the storytelling and the importance to all Canadian to present that historical, that was one of the guiding lights in 1972, and it's one that is in front of their mandate now. Another one was ecological integrity. It is the second mandate and guiding light. So keeping the mandate and the vision forward, thinking and paramount is very important right now. Out of 1972's cabinet conclusion, there was about a 5-year study done. And we don't need more studies here. They're current, they're real, and the document was called Courts. It was the Canadian Ontario Rideau Trent Severn. It was given all levels of government, municipal, provincial, federal, an opportunity to participate. The document is real. If some of you have a copy in the closet, dust it off, because we have been circulating that document because it's still a very live, living thing. And the last thing I think that anybody wants to do is head down a huge road of studying and enabling some sort of new entity. We've already done the work to show what is needed to move forward. The cooperation amongst all 3 levels of government is very enlightening on this process that you see here with the VEOC. Look who the players are. You've got your municipalities, and you've got the province, and you've got the federal government working together. That's a real step forward. And we didn't see that 5-10 years ago, albeit it's on this VEOC process, but my hope is that we are making a difference on bringing the different players together. And with the cooperation of those three entities, the Rideau's going to go someplace. Oh, there's one more thing. The 150th is really cool, but you know, we should, that's 2017, go to 2015. It's the 400th for Samuel de Champlain coming up through Ontario, and I know it's more slanted towards the Trent Severn, but the canal's had a huge impact with Samuel's escapades through this area, so potentially, let's do the parade in 2015 with the 400th anniversary of Samuel de Champlain.
Thanks, Mark, for your input. And, I just want to say once again that Mark has been a great resource to me, and my assistant Mark King, that many of you know, he used to have a boating magazine and has worked in marinas along the canal. So I'm very lucky to have the two Marks helping me with the Rideau Canal issue, which is so important to all of you. I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. This is not the end of the process, this is just the beginning. I'm available anytime if people want to talk to me about issues about the Rideau. And in this process, you can participate. There's going to be more meetings as we get the report later. We expect to have that by the end of January. We'll have another meeting where others can have more input into the process. It's not too late to participate specifically in the VEOC process right now. Go to the website, participate in the survey. Please send any submissions to me or to the folks that are organizing this process. And I will just conclude by saying it's great to see everybody pulling together. We've got the Rideau Roundtable, we've got all of the municipalities and the counties involved in this process. We've got the provincial government, our MPP, Steve Clark, has also helped with this process. And of course, Parks Canada is taking a real lead role in this process to help improve the situation with the canal. We all know how important the canal is to the economy along the Rideau corridor. And this process, I really believe, is going to help enhance that economy. It'll help create jobs, and we will continue to work hard on these hours. I can tell you that we were successful. I know John Watt doesn't agree completely, but we have had some impact on some of the initial proposals that we're going to impact the canal. I'm going to continue to, this is my priority. I've spent a lot of time on this issue, and I appreciate all of your input so that I can represent you in Ottawa and do everything we can to make the canal reach the potential that we all know it can. So thank you very much for coming out tonight, and please continue to give us input.